15 people, well 16 now, watching.
Hello, everyone. Hi there. Don't need to sit down, but we are going to start. We're going to keep things casual. We're going to begin with a few words from Lida, from Mom, read by Susan Godfrey.
This is an incredible honor to be able to share life's words with you, and an incredible comfort to be in this huge room of people who love Lida and Bill as I do. The rest is Lida. I have written in my head 1,000 times what I want to say today, but there are no adequate words. There are so many feelings of love and joy, as well as sadness and pain. So these words are from my heart. Bill and I knew we were blessed. We met at college and got married right after graduation. We were married for 54 years. Marriage is not always easy, but he was the love of my life, my one and only. July 22nd, 1963, our wedding took place on a very hot day in Birmingham, Alabama. We started our married life by driving out west. We saw Carlsbad Caverns, the Grand Canyon. We saw shows in Las Vegas. We visited his favorite Aunt Mary in La Jolla, California. We went to Disneyland, the Magic Kingdom. In San Francisco, we saw Man of La Mancha. I'm going to stop here for just a second. This is one editorial comment, and I promise my only intrusion. Bill loved to tell that Lyda came back from this honeymoon journey and said that the highlight of her honeymoon was meeting Jimmy Durante. Lyda says she never said that, but Bill swears she did. So you know him, you know her, you decide. The rest will be Lyda, I promise. I had never been to any of these places. Bill opened my eyes to a whole new world, and that was just the beginning. After our honeymoon, we lived in Decatur, Georgia, Kingsport, Tennessee, Johnson City, Tennessee, and Memphis, Tennessee. Life's journey with Bill was a great adventure. These last 14 years, we called this tiny, quirky island home. We have met many wonderful people along the way, some who are here today. Thank you for coming and for the many ways you have wrapped your arms around me and my family. I want to say one more thing. The greatest gift Bill gave me was our 3 sons. He loved them so much, and he was always proud of them. Today, he would be so proud of the way they have carried on after his horrific accident. So now, I turn the service over to our 3 sons, Jeff, Christopher, and David, so we can share together memories of my sweet, kind, loving husband.
Thank you. I want to give everybody a little bit of an idea of what to expect. I'm Jeff. I'm one of their sons, and we want to keep things casual and informal today. We would like people to feel comfortable to get up and get some more food, get something else to drink, and if people need to leave, step out. It's meant to be just a casual time for everybody together. Rough outline, Martin Garish is going to play a couple songs that Dad loved in the beginning, and then myself, Christopher, and David are going to share a few thoughts, and then Donald Davis is going to share a few memories. After that, we're going to open the mic up for a few people in the audience that want to come up and share a thought or two. And at the end, after that, we're going to have a call and response reading, and then we'll have 2 songs at the end to finish things off. And we really don't know how long this is going to go, so like I said, if people need to step out, that's fine. A lot of people have asked what they can do to help, and I'm here with an answer. Eat this food. Please hop up and get some more and help us clear this out. It's great, and just jump up and grab some more. Don't feel like you're interrupting. We are live streaming this, so don't stand right in front of the camera, but don't worry about cutting in front of it. That's fine. The second thing to help us out is please take the CDs. We need to get rid of those CDs. They make good stocking stuffers. Take a case back to your church. Take 3 cases back to your church, please. That would be great to just help us get rid of those. Please. I'm going to run through some thanks, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some people, but Phoebe has helped us with the Berkeley Manor here. This is a great venue, and it's worked out great. Paula with the Flying Melon, go eat over there. It's one of the best restaurants here. Ray from Zillie's with the drinks is great. Logan from the Methodist Church here on the island is live streaming this for us and recording it for us. Martin Garish with the music. We've got a guest book over here that we would love for everybody to write a note or two. That Leslie at Books to Be Read, which is a great shop that Dad loved. She provided that for us. Shay at the school let us use the projector, and Dave at Tweedy let us use the screen, and I'm forgetting a bunch, I'm sure, but it's been great to have all this come together. Christopher, you want to come with our first introduction here, and we'll listen to some songs and get some more drinks and collect some CDs to take home.
Howdy, everybody. Folks in the door, if you want, there is plenty of room. You can come on in. Please don't be shy, and welcome. Just a real quick introduction. Part of what my folks loved about this island was the art and music, storytelling and the music. And one of Dad's favorite musicians, Martin Garris, has joined us today to play a few songs. So Martin, take it away.
Thank you. I honestly can't say I knew Mr. Bill that well, but the first time I met him, I felt like I had known him all my life. And our connection at first was the music. And I got a few songs tonight that this is especially for you. Read a note by grandma, 1923. Grandpa kept it in his coat. He showed it once to me. He says, boy, you might not understand, but long, long time ago, your grandma's daddy didn't like me much, but I loved your grandma so. We made some crazy plans to meet and run away together. Get married in the first town we came to and live forever. Nailed to a tree where we were supposed to meet instead. I found this letter, and this is what it said. If you get there before I do, don't give up on me. I'll be there when the chores are through. I don't know how long I'll be, but I'm not gonna let you down. Just you wait and see. So between now and then, until I see you again, I'll be loving you, love me. I read this note just hours before Grandma passed away. In the doorway of a church where Grandpa knelt to pray, I know I'd never seen him cry in all my 20 years. As I read this note to him, my eyes they filled with tears. If you get there before I do, don't give up on me. I'll be there when my chores are through. I don't know how long I'll be, but I'm not gonna let you down. So between now and then, till I see you again, I'll be loving you. Love me. One of the first connections me and Mr. Bill had, we both like songs that are funny, novelty songs. I was telling his son earlier, a couple years ago, he gave me an album by the Kingston Trio and asked me to learn a song from it. I regret I haven't learned this yet, but I'm going to. And there's a song on it called Three-Legged Man. He told me they used to sing it when they were growing. So this is not the Three-Legged Man, but this is one of the songs that Mr. Bill really loved that I did. This is one called I Had the 50 Cents. I wish that you could see the gal I took to a fancy ball. You could span around her little waist so neat and very small. I thought about 2 oysters sure would fill her up complete. She was such a dainty, delicate thing, but this is what she eat. Well, a dozen raw with a plate of slaw and a fancy Boston roast, a big box stew with crackers too, and a soft crab served on toast. Then she tried some oysters fried, she should have had more sense. When she called for pie, I thought I'd die, for I had but 50 cents. She said she was not hungry, she did not care to eat, but I've got money on my flank to bet she can't be beat. She said she wasn't thirsty, she had an awful hank. She said she wasn't thirsty, but this is what she drank. Well, a brandy and gum and a big hot rum, 3 pitchers of lager beer, a whiskey can and a couple of gins did quickly disappear. She took it in so easy, she astonished all the gents. When she called for more, I fell to the floor, for I had but 50 cents. You can bet I was not hungry, I did not care to eat, expecting any moment to be kicked out in the street. She said she'd bring her sisters along the next time we came for fun. I gave the man my 50 cents, and this is what he done. He smashed my nose, he tore my clothes, he knocked me through the door. I took the prize with 2 black eyes, with me he wiped the floor. He caught me where my pants were loose, and he threw me over the fence. So take my advice, don't try it twice if you have but 50 cents. This next song is a song a lot of people like, and Mr. Bill especially like. This is a John Prine tune. This is one called Paradise. Well, when I was a child, my family would travel down to western Kentucky where my parents were born. It's a backwards old town that's often remembered so many times that my memories are worn. Well, sometimes we travel right down the Green River to the abandoned old prison down by Edge Hill, where the ash smell of snakes and we'd shoot with our pistols. Empty pop bottles was all that we killed. And Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where paradise lay? I'm sorry, my son, but it's too late in asking. Mr. Peabody's coal train done already away. Then the coal company came with the world's largest shovel. They tortured the timber and stripped all the land. And we dug for the coal till the land was forsaken. Then they wrote it all down as the progress of man. take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where paradise lay. I'm sorry, my son, but it's too late in asking Mr. Peabody's coal train to haul it away. When I die, let my ashes float down the Green River, let my soul roll on up to the Rochester Dam. I'll be halfway to heaven with paradise waiting, just 5 miles away from wherever I am. And Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where paradise lay. I'm sorry, my son, but it's too late in asking Mr. Peabody's coal train to haul it away. Mr. Peabody's coal train to haul it away.
Everyone should please go get some more food. David and then Christopher and myself are going to talk for a few minutes.
I want to tell you all a little bit about my dad and what he meant to me. I first met Dad about 40 years ago when he was about the age that I am right now. The first thing I learned from him was the concept of unconditional love. He preached about it, he talked about it, he practiced it his entire life. I didn't understand what it was until much later, of course, but I felt it from him from the beginning. It meant that he loved me no matter what, no matter who I was or what I did. It was safe no matter what happened, and knowing that he loved me. That was the foundation in which I came into and grew up into the world. For some reason, when I was young, I referred to him as Tanties. So you might hear me refer to him as that also. It was a nickname that was silly that I gave him that I don't really know why, but somehow I came up with it and it stuck. My earliest memories of Tanties are him showing me the importance of having fun. I remember at age 2 and 4 we went to Disney World, and Tanties would take me on our favorite ride, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, which was a very tame roller coaster that ends in a dark tunnel with a car where you're driving en route for a head-on collision with a train. At the last minute, the car turns to avoid the train and we're safe. It was the perfect roller coaster for 4-year-old David and 40-year-old Tanties. Tanties was a lifelong learner who loved to read. He read all kinds of books, magazines, poems, newspapers. When I was growing up, he read aloud to me his favorite books, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. He loved to share books and readings that interested him. Later in life, we would often discuss and exchange books and share what we learned. Through discussion and sharing, we connected and learned from one another. Tanties loved to share his joy with others. One of his favorite joys was going to canoe trips in the Quetico in Canada, north of Minnesota. He took me on my first trip when I was 10, and I was lucky to return 3 more times with him, including in 2019 with my brothers Jeff and Christopher and my nieces River and Shannon. He loved disconnecting from the world and his worries. Canoe trips were a place where he could depend on himself to survive and experience the beauty of being in nature. For him, I think these trips were as much about the journey, bonding with companions, and nature as they were about the Canadian wilderness where we went. One of the greatest gifts he gave me was teaching me to find joy in life. He found so much joy in life. He loved watching movies, listening to and singing music, acting in plays, giving and receiving gifts. He loved to laugh and be surrounded by the people he loved. And of course, his lifelong partnership with Mom. His life was filled with joy, and his spirit was young. I'm so grateful that he passed on to me an appreciation for living a joyful life. We loved watching movies together, sharing music, giving gifts, laughing together. The last time I saw him was Christmas. I gave him a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride t-shirt. And when he opened it, he said, "This is a treasure," and I knew exactly what he meant. We love to make each other laugh too. The last time I spoke to him was the Sunday before he fell. I was complaining about things getting in the way of my joy in life. A sick dog, being busy at work, the annoyance of doing taxes. He listened patiently while I listed all the things that were getting in the way of my life. And when I was done, he said, "Don't get too upset about doing your taxes, because that's going to come around again next year." That was perfect. One area where we never quite saw eye to eye was around spirituality and what it meant to our lives. He used to say that life was full of mystery and so wondrous. He believed that the mystery of life was to be embraced. My mind was always a little bit more analytical, and I tried to understand and rationalize things. When he fell, I had a million questions. Why did he fall? Why didn't he brace himself? How could the fall be so severe that it killed him? And I know that this will probably be a mystery that will never be solved. Learning to live with and embrace the mystery of life will be the last gift that he gave me during his lifetime. It's a mystery of life that I was so lucky to have Tantes as my dad. And I'll forever be grateful. To close, I'd like to read a poem that I think describes Dad's outlook on spirituality and life. We found this on the fridge at Mom and Dad's home after he died. It was circled in pen with, in capital letters, "Wow," written at the top. My dad. The poem is entitled "A Doubting Thomas Sort of Sonnet," and it was written by Jill Alexander Esbaum. Sometimes I think belief is obsolete. The sky is empty. God does not exist. That there's no point to life, and wishing it won't make it true. The miracles and feats arrive by way of science. Cures and healings, just suave doctrine. And soul's quick and nitwit way of naming all the tricks are hocus-pocus human brains complete. And death's the end of everything, full stop. And heaven's ever after is a ruse. And we're no more than broken, bloody dopes who pray to ghosts. But sometimes something not myself pervades the walls of my heart's room, goes boom, then racks and blacks and blues my bones. The stone is rolled, I'm whole, I'm held, it's hope. And now I'll introduce Christopher, the middle brother.
You got through that way too well. You know, we want this to be a celebration. We're not quite there yet, of course, as I'm sure some of you aren't, so bear with me. I've often said that when my father retired from the ministry, he became a storyteller. That's not right. He told stories from the pulpit every Sunday, but that's not when he became a storyteller either. I'm not sure when he became a storyteller, but I know storytelling and the love of a story well told was there from the beginning of my time with him. And the love of a story well told was one of many gifts he gave to me. What may surprise you is that from the beginning, he filled my head with stories about misbehaving. When I was a little boy, I was almost always up to some mischief, and it is almost certainly my dad's fault. From the Jack Tales collected and retold by Richard Chase to Run with the Horseman by Pharoah Sams, Papa filled my head with shenanigans and tales of tricksters. One of my favorite quotes from Run with the Horseman comes after a young Porter Osborne Jr. lights a match behind an obstinate, overly flatulent mule, resulting in a flame the length of a man's arm and the destruction of half an acre of cotton. Afterwards, Porter's father is heard saying, "He's not a bad boy. He minds well. I just can't think of enough things to tell him not to do." It's a wonder I wasn't named Porter. In all seriousness, Papa did raise me in a world in which play and mischief matter. Papa would say, life's too important to be taken seriously. His other advice was don't take things literally. When we take things literally, we take words in their usual or most basic sense, without metaphor or allegory. I think he found a more genuine truth in metaphor, allegory, parables, and symbols than the usual or basic. Not taking things literally provides a window into his ministry and came up when we discussed his Christian faith. I understood it like this. He believed that Jesus' work was to tell the story of a world where the old laws, intended to be taken literally and focused on power, control, obedience, patriarchy, were to be let go. Love is the new law. God is love. One of his favorite authors, Scott Peck, defined love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. This was the love that Papa practiced and that grounded his faith. This love is a verb. And he loved as he lived his life, with a glimmer in his eye, a little bit of mischief. You can't take the phrase, life's too important to be taken seriously, literally. It is something a trickster would say. The mischief was not ancillary. Mischief is a means of moving beyond the old laws. Get in good trouble, necessary trouble, to quote the late John Lewis. Shortly after Papa passed, I described him as a radical love wizard. I called him radical because if you embrace this new law business, love leads to radically different ideas and actions than the customs, norms, and power dynamics of the old laws. When he was a minister in the Presbyterian Church, was condemning love between same-sex couples with rationale based on old laws, he kindly, patiently, but consistently responded, Jesus teaches us that love is the new law. And I called him a wizard because I've seen him take his staff, a walking stick from the Quetico, carved by beavers, and cast a spell that removed the mirage of literalism from the world, revealing a realm where miracles are real and magic flows through all things. Our finite, imperfect bodies only know what our minds and senses pick up. The intersection of symbols, history, sounds, songs, stories in each moment is infinite in meaning and as rich and mystical as we let it be. Literalism is the lie that the usual and basic we think we understand offers us the truth. The world is much more than that. It is an abundant, wonderful world. It can be more than enough. Watership Down by Richard Adams is a story about rabbits. My papa introduced me to it when I was a little boy. It is not to be taken literally. Their God tells the prince of all rabbits, all the world will be your enemy, prince with 1,000 thieves, and whenever they catch you, they will kill you. But first they must catch you, digger, listener, runner, prince with the swift one. Be cunning and full of tricks, and your people shall never be destroyed. There it is again, be a trickster. Really is his fault. All my sheep. Facing the death of one of their own in the story, they say, quote, "My heart has joined the 1,000, for my friends stop running today. My heart has joined the 1,000 enemies. My heart seeks to rend me asunder with overwhelming grief and despair. My friends stopped running on January 28th, 2022 at 1:43 p.m. Joseph Campbell writes, "There's a very special property in the trickster. He always breaks in, just as the unconscious does, to trip up the rational situation. He's both a fool, who's someone beyond the system, and trickster represents all those possibilities of life that your mind has decided it doesn't want to deal with. We're going to need his help. The mind structures a lifestyle, and the fool or trickster represents another whole range of possibilities. He doesn't respect the values that you've set up for yourself and smashes them. I am so grateful for the gifts that my father gave me, the gift of unconditional love, the gift of mischief, the freedom from literalism, and visions of a magical world much bigger than we are. My heart can't be an enemy. I need it to do the work that Papa showed me was the only work worth doing. So to reclaim my heart from the 1,000, I turn one last time to the radical love wizards and a quote from Gandalf written by J.R.R. Tolkien in The Fellowship of the Ring, which my father read aloud to me also when I was a little boy. Despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. We do not. Thank you.
I still see food over there. So I wanted to start by thanking everyone who came from off island. It's not easy to get here. And it isn't a quick trip. But every time Mom heard about someone who was coming, she would tell us about it, and she would tell us she was in tears because she was so touched to hear that people were coming for this. And we are live streaming this to the people who weren't able to make it. Please know that we know that you're thinking about us, and it isn't too late. Please come and visit Mom in the next month or several months. Come and share some memories. Come and make some new memories. We understand it's hard to get out here, but you can come some other time. We would love that. Dad loved it here, and he would love for you to come and be here with her. He loved Ocracoke, and he loved Mom. And he would be so touched by how much the people of Ocracoke have helped take care of Mom. The one thing he loved is taking care of the other. So the other group I want to thank is the people who are here for everything they've done to take care of her. It's such a comfort to us to know how well she's being cared for. So I think that covers everybody. I want to share two memories, just little memories of Dad. The first one is from when we were living in Kingsport, and I was in daycare at the church where he worked, and we only had one car. And sometimes he would leave the car home so that Mom could run errands. Chris was a couple of years old. He was Chris back then, Christopher now. And so Dad would take me to daycare on the back of his bike. He had this beast of a metal blue bicycle that he would ride, metal fenders over both tires, and I sat in this molded one-piece yellow plastic seat up over the back tire. And he would put me in there, and we would get going, and he went 100 miles an hour. So fast. And I just have, it's a thin memory, but I have this memory that I was having fun and that he was having fun doing this. And one day at daycare, we made pinwheels. We cut out the pinwheels from a pattern, and we folded the blades over, and we pinned them to the straw. And I got a hold of mine, and I said, I wanted to get it going. And I was like, guy, and I blew on it as long and hard as I could to try to make it spin. And I can only do so much. And I thought to myself, I know how to get this thing going. Dad put me on the bike, and I waited till he got going. And I took the pinwheel and I stuck it out, and it exploded. That's how fast he is. It couldn't have been my engineer. But he made it fun. He could have driven on the roads, but instead he took a shortcut. He found a way that was even shorter, and there was a dirt path that he would go up to get us to church and back down to get us home, off-roading on this dirt road. It was just fun. And Dad had a saying that he liked to quote from we're going to be here for a couple of days. Every time I have to stop. From his mother, which was, happiness isn't getting what you want, it's wanting what you get. And I hated that saying. Because the lesson that Christopher mentioned about taking things literally, I had trouble with that. But the spirit of that was to find joy in the ordinary. I think that's the message of that saying. And as David mentioned, finding joy in everything you do, in commuting to work on the back of a bike, was a good lesson from Dad. And my challenge to myself and everyone here is to do more of that, to find joy in the ordinary. I hated the saying, happiness is liking what you get, because I would torture him with examples of how that isn't true. What are things you could get that you're not going to be happy about? And, a great example of that would be the end of January. There are things that we take comfort in. He did not have a long decline. We were all together at Christmas, had a wonderful time together, and things like that. But it was, there's no happiness there. I want to talk a minute about what happened. He fell. He was on the island. He was doing his chores, going around doing his routine, and he fell and he broke his neck. And he was paralyzed from the neck down. And when we got to the hospital, he was airlifted off island. When we got to the hospital, he was on life support, and his body was still alive, but he was gone. He was not there. And we talked to him, and we talked to the medical staff to ensure that, to be sure. And I think everybody here knows he was very generous. One of the last gifts that we received from him was that he had written a living will. And that made it easier. So my second challenge to everybody is to consider writing a living will. It was a great relief. It was a great gift from him. So he does that. I think everybody knows also that he loved movies. You may not know that he had this funny little habit of documenting the movies that he watched. He would write these cards, and this is half of one letter. He had boxes and boxes of these cards. And he wrote the title, he wrote the cast, and he wrote the director at the bottom, and the date. He didn't write a review, he didn't write when he saw it, he didn't put stars. He just documented that he saw it. I think he did it for two reasons. I think one reason was he watched so many that he needed to double check. Like he would go back and watch movies from decades ago and he couldn't remember if it was, or not. So he would go and look and see, oh, I hadn't seen that, all right, I'll watch it. I think the other reason was it was just fun, it was to collect them. And so he collected them on these cards. I don't remember the first movie he took me to. I believe the first couple were Disney re-releases like Bambi and Dumbo. But the first one that he took me to that I do remember, I was 6, it was 1977. And we were sitting a third of the way from the screen down in front. This movie came on and it overwhelmed me. What's going on here? About 5 or 10 minutes in, the villain showed up. And he was big and scary and imposing. And I said to Dad, I'm scared, I want to go home. I don't like this. He said, are you sure? I said, look at that. And so we got up and we walked out the road and we walked back up the aisle. And in the back corner, he said, why don't we watch from back here for a minute? And so we stood in the back and we watched. And a few minutes later, I said, all right, let's go sit down. That was Star Wars. And I loved it. And it was, you know, my favorite movie for years, still is in some ways. And there's the Star Wars card that he wrote. And he wrote this card in 1977. A few years ago, I connected him with a website called Letterboxd, which allows you to do this with the box, with the cards. And he went onto this site and he entered every single movie that he watched. He tagged them all. And he found some that weren't in their database. And he figured out how to report, and they added those movies to their database. And 12,637 movies was his final total. So my third challenge to you is you've got to get going to watch this. Last Father's Day, my brothers and I gave him a celebrity greeting. And you find a celebrity and you send them some notes about the person and they record a little greeting. And I was very skeptical. I didn't think this would turn out very well. But it was wonderful. It turned out great. And he showed it to people over and over again and he shared it. And we're going to share that with you now. And it's going to play from the projector, so the sound will be different.
Hey Bill. Hello Bill Jones, how are you? It's me, it's Billy Boyd, Peregrine Pippin Took. And I'm here to say, Happy Father's Day, Bill. I hope you're having a great Father's Day. I got a lovely note from Jeff and Christopher and David, and they tell me all about you, Bill. What an amazing guy you are, and what a fantastic father. So, congratulations on that. They said that you've watched films, lots of films, over 12,000 films. I love that. I love films myself. You love Lord of the Rings, well that's good. I was in the movie there's now that. You love the books as well and you read it to your kids when they were younger, that's fantastic. Well done on that. Sharing that wonderful fantasy. Brilliant. I love it. Singing. You like singing? I sing a few songs myself. In fact, here's a song from Lord of the Rings that you might recognise. Pippin sings in the Great Hall of Gondor. Home is behind, the world ahead, and there are many paths to tread through shadow. Bill, special for you on your Father's Day from Jess, Christopher and David. Hopefully it's around 5 p.m. p.m. where you are in the world, which is probably on Orca Coke Island. Oh no, Lida, sorry. My eyes are going, I'm getting older, Bill. But love to Lida as well. And if it's 5 o'clock, pour yourself a little glass of wine. Why not? Enjoy yourself. It's Father's Day. Maybe tomorrow go on a canoe trip. I hear you like a little canoe trip in the wilderness. Whatever you do, Bill, I hope you have a great time. And know that there's a lot of love coming your way from Jeff, Christopher, and David. And now, from a fool of a took. Lots of love to you and your good wife, Lida. And I hope you guys have a fantastic Father's Day. Make sure somebody cooks your second breakfast. All the best, Bill. Bye-bye.
So I'm going to channel Jeff. There's still food. Please feel free. Drinks in the back as well. So I mentioned earlier that part of what I brought my parents to Ocracoke and was a strong connection was the arts. Specifically, what brought him here was one of Donald Davis's workshops, and so storytelling obviously a big part of my dad's life. And Donald was a good friend of his from college, and he agreed to like to come up and share some words. So Donald, come on up and take it away.
60 years ago this spring, 60, I was graduating from high school, and in the fall of the year went off to Davidson College. I was totally unprepared psychologically, socially, and in any possible way to be a college student. I was so unprepared that I founded a club called the Naivete Club. I was the only officer and the only member. Lida likes for me to tell this one little episode so you'll understand what I was like before I met Bill. We had just gotten to the end of orientation, and all the rules had been given, everything we were supposed to know had been laid out before us. And all the way at the end, the Dean of Students said, does anybody have any questions? Nobody had any questions except one person. I raised my hand because I'd noticed that they had forgotten to tell us one extremely important thing. And he said, well, what did we forget to tell you? I said, sir, you forgot to tell us what time to go to bed. And I didn't understand why everybody was laughing. Because in my entire lifetime, I'd never been anywhere when there was not a published announced bedtime. The next year, Bill arrived, and there was a second member of the Naivete Club. Because you see, when I told Bill what I'd done the year before, he didn't understand why it was funny. Because where he had gone to boarding school at Indian Springs, they always had a published lights out time. He assumed, like I did, that we'd have that at college as well. Bill and I became almost instant friends. We loved taking classes together. We loved hanging out together. He thought I was funny, and when he was sad, that cheered him up. And because he thought I was funny, thinking that I did something good cheered me up. And so we spent as much time together as we could. That first year, they filled up Lake Norman of what was at that time a brand new Duke Power Lake. And a lot of land was donated for a lake campus for the college. And Bill and I would go out to the lake campus and pretend to study. But mostly we would sit there pretending to study while we just told stories to each other. Neither one of us having any idea at that time that years later, storytelling would be the very center of both of our lives. I want to tell you a couple of little incidents that Lida and the boys don't know about. they weren't supposed to be told about until Bill couldn't do anything about it. That first year there, when we were in college, IBM began to lease mainframe computers to college campuses to try to get them to buy one of these things. And so we got this new mainframe computer that was supposed to do all kinds of things like, when you went to register for classes, everybody could pick whatever class they wanted. And then the computer would come up with some kind of magical schedule that would enable all of it to work. And then somebody came out with a program where you could pay $5 and get 5 computer-matched dates. We paid our $5 and we got these long lists of questions. You answer questions about everything, about your background, about your food preferences, about your sexual dreams, everything. It just went on and on for pages and pages. And then we sent these off and they went through the computer and they came back and we were matched with 5 dates that were supposed to be within 100 miles of where we were students at school. Bill and I did it, and we got our papers back, and we looked at them together, and both of us had a date at the same campus, Pfeiffer College, which was a little Methodist junior college not an hour from where we were down in the middle of North Carolina. Bill wasn't sure he wanted to go over there because it was a Methodist college. And we were both at Davidson, which was Presbyterian. Of course, Bill was Presbyterian, but I was Methodist. So I said, let's go over there, and we can both have our first date on this list at the same place. I had a car. Bill didn't have a car there yet because he was still a freshman. I was a sophomore. So we drove over to Pfeiffer College. We found the dorms where our 2 dates were supposed to be. I went off to have mine. Bill went off to have his. I can't tell you about his. I can only tell you a little bit about mine. You'll understand in a moment. I went in and I called this girl to come down, and here she came. And I want to describe her with fairness, which is difficult. She told me that she had grown up on a farm in Scotland County, and the greatest thrill of her life was driving a tractor for her daddy. And then she wanted to know if I thought I might be interested after I finished college in coming and farming with her daddy. We went for a little walk out around the pond there off the edge of the campus, and about the time we got out of sight of everybody who could have rescued me, she looked down at me. Now, she could have taken me down at any moment. And she said, who would have ever guessed that I would have met my future husband through a computer? And right then I announced that I had blasting diarrhea on the way in a hurry, and I had to get out of there, and I made a run for it. Well, I thought I'll go around here to the car and I'll back it around where she can't see it and wait till Bill gets there. And when I got to the car, you know what? He was in the car waiting for me. And there was this whole mess of stuff in his lap where he had taken the sheet with the 5 dates on it and he had ripped it up into about 500 little tiny shreds. And the only thing I ever heard about his date was, I sure am glad I'm not a Methodist. And I'm telling that now because, you see, if that computer dating plan had worked, he would never have met Lyda. So see, you were saved, Lyda. You were saved for it, and the next year you got a chance to meet Bill. Our greatest time together as college students was through music. We both sang in the Davidson Male Chorus, and then out of that group, Bill and I sang in a double quartet called the Lamplighters. And the Lamplighters went out to sing for occasions when the whole male chorus didn't go. We would go on a tour in the spring of every year, and Bill and I would be roommates on that tour. I want to tell you about 2 things that happened 2 different years. One was in the spring of 1965 when we were in New York City. We sang on Sunday afternoon at 5th Avenue Presbyterian Church, And then we had a free night that night. The only deal was we're supposed to be back to get on the bus at 9 o'clock the next morning. One of my best friends from high school had gone to New York to work at the World's Fair, which had been held over for that second year. And we met up with him that night. We went out to eat at a place. We had something called fondue that we had never heard of before. I don't think they had fondue in Talladega. And after it was all over, we went back with my other friend Bill, and we stayed in his apartment until way after midnight. And sometime about 1 or 2 in the morning, we realized we had to go back to our hotel so we'd be there the next morning. We were going to ride the subway back. Neither one of us had been to New York City before. Neither one of us had ever ridden the subway. But my high school friend told us it was easy. And with his instructions, we went down and got not a ticket at that time, it was a token to put in the little turnstile. And we went through to get on, and he said, get on the first one that comes, and then get off at Lincoln Center. We were going to the Hotel Empire right across from Lincoln Center. We got on the first subway train that came, not noticing that on the outside it said, Interborough Express. And the next stop was in Harlem. And here were 2 little naive boys from North Carolina and Alabama in New York City for the first time in our lives. At 2 o'clock in the morning, getting off of a subway that stopped in Harlem. We were a different color from everybody else there. And the only thing we could think to do was to get out, come up to the street, go across, come down on the other side, get back on the next subway that came, no matter where it was going, because it had to be better than Harlem. And we made it. We made it. And we avoided our parents getting a call from the college chaplain to tell them that we had both been killed in New York City. And we lived long enough for Bill. You'd already met Bill by then, Lida, but you weren't married yet. So you didn't know that we could have gone off up there and he could have never come back again. Look at all the years you got after that, when you barely escaped death right there. When we were 21 years old, we got by. But our greatest adventure in the male chorus was what happened one night when we were in New Orleans. The tour that year had taken us to Dallas, and then by New Orleans, back to end in Atlanta. And in New Orleans, we had a free night. Oh my goodness. Drinking age was 18 at that time. They decided back then we were old enough to drink but not old enough to vote. And then they flipped that on everybody. Old enough to vote, but not old enough to drink. But we could still drink. And Bill and I went out on this Saturday night. It was a free night, heading up and down Bourbon Street, discovering New Orleans. You go by these places, and there was somebody out on the street trying to, tempt you to come inside. Come inside. Come in and see Al Hurt, 2 drink minimum. Come see Al Hurt. And we went inside. The drink of the year was whiskey sours. I had 17 whiskey sours. And they were so totally weak I couldn't tell I'd had them on. I don't know what they put in them. But the band was playing. We were going to see Al Hurt. And all of a sudden, on a circular little elevator thing coming up out of the floor from a basement below, Al Hurt came up on this little circular thing, up into the middle of the room playing. Oh, wow, it was amazing and wonderful. And his guest playing with him that night was Pete Fountain. Wow, did we have a great time. But the fun was just starting. Because we headed down the next street. And all of a sudden it was come inside, 2 drink minimum, come see Alouette the Tassel Twirler. And Bill said, I wonder what that is. I don't know, but we've only had 15 whiskey sours. We have 2 more, let's go. And we went inside to see Alouette the tassel twirler. We will never forget her name or anything else. She was attired in 3 tassels. And she could make those tassels both go in the same direction, or both go in the other direction, or go in 2 opposite directions at the same time. And even that was not enough to lead Bill to break up with Lida. So I don't know any better, but I figure she must have had some talents that totally outdid Alouette the tassel twirler. And Bill was happy with her talents. You know, in the Western world, we put people in one of 2 categories. People are either dead or alive. I mean, that's the way we put people, they're dead or alive. But if we look at some of the sub-Saharan African cultures, they have a 3rd category. Their 3rd category is what they call the living dead. And the category of the living dead is those people whose biology has expired, but there are still people alive who are telling stories about them. And they consider people not to be dead until there is no one else alive who can tell any more stories about them. And so, see, we're here today to celebrate Bill as being part of our living dead. We tell about him. We keep telling about him. We tell each other what we learned from him, what he did for us, what he meant to us. And as long as we keep telling those stories, he doesn't enter dead. He's still part of our personal, treasured, important living dead.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. So we are going to open things up now to anyone who wants to come up and share a memory, a story, a thought, a prayer, a reading, something like that. And we don't really know how long this will go, and we're not experts at time management, so if we feel like someone's going on, we might start to hover. Forgive us, because we want to give everybody a chance to talk. And we would suggest 3 to 4 or 5 minutes as a target for you. But think about it. There's something you'd like to say, come up and share with us. And I think Mom's brother and his wife are going to start us off with a couple of words. And maybe if someone else is ready to share something, could have one person line up, and as soon as that person's gone, have the next person sort of line up. We don't need a line, but when you see an opening, come over here and be ready for that. So let's go into that now, and I'm thrilled to see people eat.
I'm Lida's brother, also known as Uncle Brother. After tonight, I want to say I'm even more proud to be Lida's brother, and more proud to be my nephew's uncle. We're so proud of y'all. They love you so much. Is that charge for this? One of the gifts to us, Bill's gift to us, is that he introduces to the noted theologian Frederick Mignon. And tonight, Betty is going to read one of favorite Beekner quotes.
Which I think was one of Bill's favorite Beekner quotes, and at Lida's request, we're going to share this now. Woo! Okay, thank you. This is from Beekner's book, Now and Then, A Memoir of Vocation. And it goes like this. Listen to your life. See it for the fathomless mystery of it. And the fathomless mystery it is. See it for the fathomless mystery it is. In the boredom and pain of it, no less than in the excitement and gladness. Touch, taste, smell your way to the holy and hidden heart of it. Because in the last analysis, all moments are key moments, and life itself is grace.
May need some help with this, maybe not. I'm Jim Sellers, and I'm here with my wife, Nancy Sellers. And I just wanted to speak real briefly and tell Lida and David, Christopher, and Jeff how sad we are for you and for ourselves with Bill's passing. And I know the people that we know from our last several years together, decades as a matter of fact, also feel that way, and they're known as the Five Families. And they are the Perrys, Rutherfords, Jones, Sellers, Van Cleves. The Five Families, for y'all's benefit, my wife and I became involved with them 33 years ago when my son Ted and David Jones were playmates at 6 years old. Since then, in those 33 years, we spent the early decades together pretty much doing everything as a family, children and adults alike. Every known youth sport in the world we were part of. T-ball, softball, hardball, soccer, basketball. We didn't have hockey in Memphis, Tennessee. But we also spent holidays together. Christmas Eve, New Year's. We went boating. We went camping. This again covered a long span of time, and as the time went on, we also shared high school graduations, college graduations, engagements, weddings, and even now, 33 years later, we take a lot of joy in celebrating the shared children of our children as they come into this life. Unfortunately, some of them couldn't be here, so I'm sharing this kind of with you. One of the things we know from our long time spent with the Joneses is that Bill definitely was love. He not only loved Lida and his family. We know he loved us, and we loved him. And that's because he had this special way in this long relationship of being a soft influence, a joyous individual, a person with a kind word, and above all, a great listener. When you were talking to Bill, he made you feel like you were the only thing, only person in the world, and were important. In this relationship, he touched us all in a way that has made us better people, and we are richer for that. Bill loved a lot of things, and they've been said here tonight. Canoeing at the Quetico, storytelling, singing, Bilbo. And one thing, if you look at these films, you'll notice he had this favorite outfit in the Quetico. It was comprised of high-top Converse sneakers, khakis, t-shirt, loose flannel shirt, neckerchief, and a floppy fedora. I suspect y'all's trip, it may have been the one that he had when he went 40 or 50 years ago. Wouldn't surprise me. But again, we have all, the 5 families, been made richer for just knowing Bill and God. Bill is our friend. And moments.
Good afternoon, I'm Brenda Kremser, and by Ocracoke standards, I am a newbie. But my story is the first time I came to Ocracoke, and the first person I met was Bill Jones. We came up in our sailboat, and it was in June, somewhere around 2000. And they were having a storytelling Donald Davis, which I'm very grateful not to have to follow. I wondered what was going on over there at OPS, the Ocracoke Preservation Society, of which Bill was a great supporter. And I approached the area, and Bill came out and introduced himself, and we began to talk. And I asked him what was going on, and he said, oh, we're having a storytelling camp, if it were, with Donald Davis, and you're welcome to join us and hear the stories. And so we began to talk about Bill a little bit. Of course, you know, Bill always wants to know about you. But I told him I was from Memphis. And I'm like, and Bill says, I'm from Memphis. And I'm thinking, okay, he's about to go into some kind of spiel or something, you know, this storytelling thing. And I thought, okay. What else you got? And he said, no, really, I'm from Memphis. And I said, let me see your driver's license. Whips it out. You're from Memphis. And he said, I said, as a storyteller, not a liar. And so Bill welcomed me to the storytelling, and it was a wonderful event. And I just want everyone to know in the family how dear he was and what a void he has left in our community. And we're grateful to celebrate his life today.
Jeff just told me to introduce myself. I'm Jack Boyles, Linus Everett's son. I don't serve the daughter, but I got to know Lida and Bill. Whoa. I got to know Lida and Bill as a sophomore in high school. My mother tricked me into going to church one day. And then she tricked me into going to a meeting to set up with the new associate pastor and his wife, our youth group. I was the only one who showed up. I didn't even know anybody. I was new to Kingsport. And they just looked at me and said, hey, we got to pick up some stuff at Sears. You want to go? I said, sure. And we parked that big old Pontiac, 70s something, in the parking lot and went inside and got something for plumbing and something for this. And we walked back outside, and this little skinny preacher guy says, now where did I park that car? And I went, wow, it wasn't too bad for a high school kid to hear that. So, we've been on some adventures, and I've enjoyed them all. Thank you, Lila.
Hello, my name is Jeff Jernigan. I'm a classmate of Jack's, and probably a few weeks to a couple of months or so after he showed up at the youth crew, I did too. And it was the time of the Christmas pageant, and I thought, well, you know, it's time to be at the Christmas pageant. I'll go go to the church either. I've never been to myself either. But by that time, there had been a few more of our classmates that came around. And I remember at the end of that first Sunday evening, Bill came up to me and said, thank you for coming. And he made me feel very welcome. And he was always there for me. Bill had a way of being there for you however far you were away or however long the years have gone. That was in 1970, fall of 1970. He was there all through the decade of the 70s for me. He pointed me in some directions that have stayed with me up until now. He married my wife and I, Carol, in 1982. And lo and behold, and back in the early 70s, I want to go back to that a minute, their family became part of my family too. My mother and dad took a liking to them, obviously, and we loved them, and their family became our family. And our family became church family. And like I said, he's been there for me for all those years, over 50 years now. And through the 80s and the 90s, when Bill and I moved to Memphis, we ran into each other. We didn't see each other that much in Memphis, oddly, but every time we did see each other, it was like you start talking to them, it was like you'd seen them a couple of days ago. And obviously when they came here, same thing, and through the 2000s as well. He was always there for us, always there for me, and there's a hole in our lives right now. And it'll be hard, but we'll always remember him and be thankful for the time we had with him. Thank you.
I'm Phil Shannon from Memphis. First of all, I'd say it takes a real fool to follow Martin and the three boys and Don. And Martin, I sure hope Mr. Peabody doesn't find out about Ocracoke and carry it away, but this is a paradise to come to. My wife Fran and I have been friends of Lida and Bill for a long, long time. Bill was our pastor in Memphis. And Fran and I helped Bill and Lida move to Ocracoke. In fact, Fran has speeding tickets from all over eastern North Carolina to prove. I think her picture is on the wall in Janesville. But what I wanted to tell you about was this tie. I know most of you can't see it, but it's just a blue tie, and it's got paddles and canoes on it. Until today, I'd only worn this tie twice in the 23 years since I bought it. I wore it to work one day, and the next Sunday I wore it to church. And after church, Bill came up to me and he said, "Man, I love that tie." And on a spur of the moment, I took that tie right off my neck and I put it around his neck. And I said, "Well, I want you to have it." And at first he tried to not accept it, but he took it. He really did like it. And then he told me, "I'm going to give you one of my ties." He probably never wore a tie out here. You didn't want him to give you a tie. So I told him the truth. "Bill, I got too many ties. I don't need another one." I said, but he felt like he wanted to do something. So he said, I said to him, "Well, I'll tell you what. I know you take these trips to Canada. One of these years, sometime in the future, I would like for you to take me with you on that trip," knowing that it was just never going to happen. And Bill looks at me and said, "Well, you've got great timing. We're going on a trip in July." I said, "Oh, no." So this tie is the most important tie I've ever had. Bill kept it. That whole time, Jeff gave it to me yesterday for Lida, for a month. Okay. But I wanted to tell you that I thought I knew Bill, and I didn't know Bill at all until we went on this trip. There were 5 of us all together, and 3 of us, that included Bill, are here today. Bill Harrison is back over in that corner right there. So it's 3 of us were on that trip. What I found out on that trip was Bill Jones is one of the strongest people I have ever met, pound for pound. And truly, in double packing and making multiple trips over a portage and canoeing one of the strongest people I ever knew. I found out how knowledgeable he really was. And not just about the Bible and those sorts of things that I already knew he was really good at, but just knowledgeable of everything, particularly the things we were doing in Quetico. I found that he could be very decisive, but he held back from it. He wanted us to make decisions. He never allowed us to make any really foolish decisions, but he didn't flaunt his knowledge and his experience. And that was truly the way he lived. He enjoyed the wilderness. He kept going back. He really enjoyed it out there, but what he enjoyed even more was seeing us enjoying his favorite place. He taught us to live in the moment. When you're on a portage that is made of wet granite, you have to watch every step you take. You can't think about what are you going to do when you get back home, or you're going to find yourself flat on your butt. So living in the moment was one of the most important things that he taught me. Bill was a real leader, the best kind of leader. Bill was the real thing, and he was a real friend to us.
Hey everybody, Tom Paul. I live here on the island, and Bill was a really good friend of mine. He was. I'm gonna miss him. I'm really gonna miss him, and I appreciate the chance to come here and say that out loud because it really helps. And thank you for being here to hear that. And after Bill passed, and to a certain extent before, I've gotten to know his three sons, and Bill definitely lives on in his sons. And you guys are great. You guys are really Bill was what probably my teenage granddaughter would call her BFF, best friend forever. Bill was one of my best friends forever. And how I know that is how he made my life better in so many ways, big and small. Just for example, because there still is more food to eat and I don't want to take too much time, but for example, he picked out a movie for us to watch just about every week. And it was a small thing going to watch a movie with Bill and Lida every week. It was one of those small acts of kindness that just meant so much. It was important for its unimportance, and he did it over and over, and it just meant so much to us. And it didn't matter, but it mattered. And at the other end of that extreme, things that really matter because they matter. You all probably know that in 2019 we had a terrible hurricane here on the island. It was the worst hurricane since the hurricane of '44. And then following right on the heels of Hurricane Dorian was, of course, unprecedented pandemic. And it happened that during that period of time, I was county commissioner for Ocracoke. And it was a little bit more than I thought I'd signed up for, but there it was, and it was my responsibility. And there were days when I'd get through the day, and come evening time, my phone would ring, and I'd say to myself, you know what, I'm just not sure I can take one more phone call. But I'd look at it, and it would be Bill Jones, so of course I would take it. And it would be Bill, and what he would say to me was, buddy check. Can you hear him saying that? Buddy check. He'd say, how are you doing? And I'd say, well, Bill, you know, we have limited resources, and we're trying to allocate them to the people who need them the most, and we're working hard at it. And he'd say, well, you know, I appreciate that, and I'm really glad you're doing it, but that's not what I asked you. I asked, how are you doing? And that's how I know that Bill was my best friend forever. He was also, as I'm sure you all know, a great conversationalist. He loved a good discussion. And one of the topics that we like to talk about the most, because we had differences, had to do with his theology as opposed to my kind of commitment to the scientific method of pursuing the truth. And we like to bounce that back and forth, and he had great respect for differences of opinion, and to him it was about sharing ideas, not about winning the argument. But this particular day I had to concede that he actually won the argument on this day, because what he said to me was the following. He said, if you're right, it doesn't matter. But if I'm right, then Can Can you picture Bill saying, na 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 na? So, a couple of weeks after Bill passed, and with heavy hearts, Carol and I went on a vacation that had been long planned to Culebra, a little island in the Caribbean. And so we were there and spent a lot of time thinking about Bill and Lida while we were away. And one night at dinner, I said to Carol, I think I'm going to call Lida tomorrow and see how she's doing. And Carol said, oh, that's a really good idea. Let's do that. And so we left the restaurant, and it happened to be there was an art gallery next door. We went into the art gallery, and we're kind of poking around in the art gallery. And Carol's phone rang. She stepped outside and took the call. Came back in a little while later, and we looked around the art gallery some more. And when we walked out, she said to me, oh, you called Lida? And I said, no, I'm going to call her tomorrow. Like I said, I didn't call Lida. And she said, well, that's funny because Lida called me and she said she was returning your call. And I kind of raised my eyebrows, which incidentally is the first step in the scientific method. Raising your eyebrows. And so then I looked on my phone to see if maybe I had perhaps accidentally dialed Lida. And there was no evidence on my phone that I had accidentally called Lida. So I put off further investigation into this until we got back to Ocracoke. And with Lida's permission, I looked on her phone to see if there was any evidence of my having called her at that point when we were in the little island in the Caribbean, and there was no evidence on her phone either. Which of course begs the question of when I heard Carol's phone ring in that little art gallery in Culebra, did I also maybe faintly hear in the background, na 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 na. And the thing is, if you know how the scientific method works, one coincidence does not answer the need of the scientific method. But the fact of the matter is, we'll probably never know whether there was the faint sound of na 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 going on behind that phone call, or not. And the thing is that at the heart of the discussion that we were having is the difference between knowing and believing. And it's a powerful discussion. But for now, I'm willing to leave it at that, because the one thing that I do know for sure is that Bill Jones is my best friend forever. And I will listen to it.
I have to tell y'all that Tom and Carol are the ones who drove me to Greenwood to be with Bill. And I will be forever grateful for that. Y'all had to know that.
Hello, I'm Emmett Temple, and my family was friends with Bill, still friends with Lida, the family. I just wanted to share two brief things about Bill today. One is that you mentioned before that he loved being in plays. He was in several plays with us at Ocracoke School, my time there, and in Midsummer Night's Dream, and in the Scottish play right over here. And he was in the first play that I got to direct. And when I told my very good friend Wade, who also knew Bill and was also in the Blackbeard play with him, and in not Midsummer, but in Romeo and Juliet with him, Wade also sends his regards and his love. But he and I just were both struck by how special it is to have somebody older in the community who is willing to come and spend their time and their energy with a bunch of young kids trying to put on some plays and doing things like that. And he was always willing to share of himself that way. And I'll miss that, miss seeing him out and around at potlucks and gatherings around the community because he was always there. I really appreciate that. And also talked about his love of movies. He was the first one to show me Jaws. And if anyone who's ever seen Jaws knows you're never going to forget the first time you see it or who you were with. So I'll always remember that. I'll remember Bill when I think of Jaws. So thank you.
Might have taken a yoga class know that namaste means the light in me honors and greets the light in you. And at the end of each of our Yoga for Seniors class, which he faithfully and enthusiastically attended, that Henry, my husband, and I teach, he would so gratefully and with that mischievous glint in his eyes say namaste. And whenever I would see him in the grocery store or on the beach or walking around town, he would look at me and do something that we did in class a lot. And there were no words that were needed. It was a way of just saying, which he did say, I do this every day. It's made a difference in my life. And I would say, namaste, it made a difference in my life.
Hello, I am Anna Catherine Super. I am a niece of Lida and Mills and have a quotation to share that they had posted in their house, so many of you have seen it before. Life is short, and we have not much time for gladdening the hearts of those who travel the dark way with us. Oh, be swift to love, make haste to be kind. Henri Frédéric Amiel, from 1821 to 1881.
I have evidence, the scientific evidence or the written evidence. When I read Christopher's description of a radical love wizard, I sat in that for a while, and I thought about that for a while, and it really hit me. And I remembered in my baby book, 1973, a letter my Uncle Bill wrote to me. I'm Laura Wiley Fiallos. I'm Lida and Bill's niece, and he was my godfather. And so he wrote to me, Dear Laura, I'm sorry I couldn't be on hand for your baptism yesterday. I know it was a big day for you and everyone. You have been born into a good family with plenty of love to give you! Exclamation mark. That will help you as you grow up, because, as I'm sure you will discover, love is what makes living so good. Love is in all capitals. That is what your baptism yesterday was all about. That's a radical love wizard.
Now, a lot of y'all know me. Some of y'all do not know me. I am a teacher at Ocracoke School. And Bill was, as Tom said. Tom said Bill was his pet, but that's a lie. Because Bill was my best friend. I was talking to Luke Harrington a little earlier, and I was like, Luke, I think it's because of you and Ryan that I met Bill. And I think we met at Gaffer's. Now, I don't know how many of y'all know Gaffer's, but many a relationship has started at Gaffer's. Granted, most relationships don't last that long that start at Gaffer's. It was trivia night, and I'm not a very ambitious person. I really have only one goal in life, and I see Chrissy back there. My one goal in life is to beat Charles Temple at trivia. Charles won Jeopardy. He talks about it a lot. Well, we were apparently one person short. Bill and I started talking, and some cheese and crackers. And if you know me, I will never turn anybody down if they're offering me alcohol or food. And they had both of them. And I went, and I kept coming back again and again and again and again. I have probably had wine, cheese, and crackers at Lida and Bill's 500 times. For some odd reason, we must have been talking on the porch one day, and Mary Ellen, who was a longtime teacher at Ocracoke School, she was a volunteer spot. I mean, she just always brought volunteers into her classroom. She was darn good at it. And we were just talking, and for some reason, either he said or I said, I'd be interested in having a volunteer at school one day. And Bill was like, well, I'd be interested in volunteering at Ocracoke School one day. And you have to understand, I might look young now, though I'm not. I tell my students I'm like 102 years old, and they believe it. They also believe I'm 3 feet tall, and they're a bunch of crap. But he said he'd like to volunteer, and I said, well, why not? I haven't been doing this very long. I really don't know what I'm doing. It sounds like you are eminently more qualified than me to lead a classroom, but I would love to have you come in next year. And that next year, I remember introducing him to the class and telling him that exact same thing. I am not qualified to teach y'all, but this year I have brought somebody in who is qualified to teach y'all. And that person's name was, of course, Bill Jones. I don't know why he loved my class. I still don't know why, but he loved it. Some of y'all think I am a good teacher. None of y'all, I think Parker, I don't know if he's in here for my teaching prowess. But the reason that I was a good teacher. And by God, he spread that word throughout the whole entire island. And as a young, and a very young teacher, this is my first job out of school, you can't imagine how much confidence that gave me. To have someone like Bill, every single person he meets, telling, my goodness, I'm volunteering in this classroom, and it is just amazing. Education meant the world to Bill. Indian Spring School meant the world to Bill. He told me on many occasions that his dad sent him to boarding school and thought he would get a proper education in all things Alabama. And he was wrong. He got a different sort of education, though I'd like to think that it didn't matter where Bill would have been educated. Bill would have always been Bill. That year we read some tough stuff. Flavia, I don't think she's here anymore. She always ragged on me for Our reading list was tough. I mean, I'd go through the New Yorker that week, and if there was a damn good story, I'd take out every F word, be like, this is good to go, guys, because we should be reading it. Bill would always be in the front row, and by God, I don't know what those 6th graders thought, but it was me and him just talking back and forth about whatever book or whatever story we'd be reading for hours on end. And they were speechless. They did not talk. So I would like to think that they were unbelievably enamored with our breathtaking brilliance. Colby and the rest of them aren't here to tell me otherwise. They're probably sleeping. I wouldn't know the difference. Just like Jeff's probably hovering over my shoulder right now. And it doesn't make a difference either. Remember, I teach. And earlier folks were like, yeah, please, just get up, get food, it doesn't matter. I went to Peace Corps after 2 years here. And it's hard to believe, but Bill and I only worked together in the classroom for a year. Honest to God, felt forever. And that's not a negative. He was the one person from Ocracoke that wrote me every single month. I pulled up this morning and I searched Bill's name, and it said 1 of 50 and then of many, and I couldn't look through them all. But every month he'd write me. And then, by God, I quit Peace Corps. Well, I didn't quit. They didn't kick me out, which would have been funny, but Bill might take some joy out of that. I stayed there for 3.5 years, and then I came back home. And, I've been teaching for 5 years, and teaching's hard. And I decided, am I going to keep this up, or am I going to do something else? Well, I remember the first person I wrote when I decided that I was actually going to come back to teaching was Bill. And I swear to God, not more than an hour later, he wrote to me and he said, Jay, I'm so glad that you've decided to come back to teaching. And do you know, there is a math position open at Ocracoke School. I said I was unqualified to teach middle school English. Well, let me tell you something. I have no qualifications to teach high school math. But by God, and I only because of Bill, I would imagine, did enough people on this island believe in me that I could come back and teach high school math. And that's what I've been doing for 4 years. And I would like to think I've done a pretty darn good job. But again, that's only because I had people who believed in me. And my #1 cheerleader was Bill Jones. I've watched many movies with Bill. I've drank many a gin and tonic with Bill. He was just a wonderful person and a wonderful friend. I think back the last few times I saw him, and the world weighed on him heavily. He was not happy about our current state of affairs. He thought some people who were in positions of authority should do a much better job. Bill lived to the highest of standards, and he expected us to do better. I was the optimist in the group, and I was like, Bill, it's going to be okay. I think we're all going to be all right. We've been through tough times before, and we're going to get through this one too. Well, there's never been a moment that I've not believed that more, or that I strongly believe that now. Because it's people like Bill that have shown us all the way, that have shown us all the way forward. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. But there's always going to be somebody out there. There's always going to be something out there that pushes us forward. That person for me, for the rest of my life, will be Bill. I know he loved his family dearly. I was talking with Sydney earlier. I was quizzing her about her school activities. She was probably wondering why this strange old man knows so much about her life. Well, it's because of Bill. He loved you all dearly, and he talked of you all the time. I know we will all miss him, but it's because of him that we have the strength to go forward and to make this place a little better. Thank you.
This has all been wonderful. Thank you all so much. Anyone else want to say anything else before we move on? Okay, thank you so much. I've thought of one name that I forgot, which was Jack Willis, who's been helping out with the audio-visual stuff. And thanks for that. And my daughters. The Cream de Mint brownies, for those who didn't know, were baked by Bill for a lot of events, and my daughters Sydney and Shannon baked those, and Owen, and who else worked on them? Everybody worked on them. But those were one of the things Dad was known for. So to wrap things up, right before Martin plays a couple of songs, we're going to do a reading that Bill and Wanda Neely are going to lead us in, and Laura, my cousin, is going to give a quick translation of that for anyone here who's speaking Spanish. So, and there's still food. No worries.
One more story. When I was first starting out in ministry, I got my dream call. It lasted a total of 18 months before they decided I was not a good fit at the college I was teaching at and serving as campus ministry. I was a Southern Baptist, and Bill Jones was chair of the committee to find a Presbyterian campus minister at East Tennessee State University. And he found me. Catch was, I had to pass the standard ordination exam. Now, I don't know if any of y'all know what that is, but it is a bear. And I took the exam. Bill and two other ministers in the Presbyterian graded it. I am extremely dyslexic. I write nothing down. You'll see that in a minute when I try to read. And I said to Bill, you know, I don't spell too well. And he said, we're not grading you on spelling. And I transferred my ordination in the Presbyterian Church, and it changed my life. And Wanda's got an addendum.
And I had been out of seminary 16 years with my Master's of Divinity and began to figure it would never be used in any way. And then I met Bill Jones. And Bill Jones said, yes, you do have a call. And a woman can be ordained. And a woman can be a pastor. And Bill Jones started opening doors for me that no one else had worked to make that happen. And so finally, he was there 38 years ago when I was ordained to the ministry. And finally, after all those years, when we retired, we came back this past September to thank Bill Jones for what he had done in our ministries and in our lives. And we were trying to tell Bill thanks. You remember, Lida? And finally I said, Bill, do you hear what we're trying to say? We're trying to say, thank you. And Bill said, in his unassuming way, he said, it was nothing. It was nothing. Well, Bill Jones, it was not nothing. You changed our lives. And we were just one of many that he did. He played a role in changing lives. So we are thankful for Bill Jones. Yep. Okay. We did have the privilege of being colleagues in ministry with the Reverend Dr. Bill Jones in Tennessee. And as we have heard in this time, he spent his life caring and doing for others. And Lida has suggested that we close this time in a time of remembrance of other individuals. Out of that spirit of compassion that he was always doing for others, that we take time and think about others in our lives, individuals we have loved and lost. And so Bill Neely is going to come and lead you, explain to you how you can take that time to remember others so that indeed we can participate in the living dead, to remember those. Bill?
The way we're going to do this is I'm going to recognize each table, and if you will, just either raise your hand or stand up if you're able, and speak a name of someone you want to remember. And then at the close, we will have Wanda will explain it. I just realized I was stepping all over her, and not the first time.
I'll explain it now. This is a special reading that we understand that Bill Jones used on occasions like this. And this is going to be our closing. Occasions like this, when a time of remembrance was used. And Bill used it to remind those there about the living dead. That in all seasons and all circumstances of life, we remember others. And so we will cue you about how we will remember those.
Y ellos quieren hacer algo que hacía mi tío Bill, que quería incluir mi tía, que para conmemorar y recordar gente querida, que ellos van a llamar mesa a mesa, y si alguien quiere decir un nombre, que quieren reconocer a alguien que se ha muerto, pero que está living dead, que está muerto, pero es alguien que siempre recordamos y estamos contando historias de ellos, y entonces viven por nuestras historias. Entonces mesa por mesa van a decir, si alguien quiere decir un nombre, alguien puede decir un nombre, y al final van a tener una actividad para usar esos nombres para que recordamos a esta gente querida.
Gracias, Señor. It's all the Spanish I know. But anyway, I will begin, and I will point out tables. We would like to remember our son, Will Neely. We would like to remember my brother, Bob Neely. And we would like to remember my sister-in-law, Dawn Spadine.
we'd like to get this on the live stream, so speak if you could, speak it loud enough for old retired people to hear. You said Frank and Evelyn Bird? Okay, some of you may need to relay it over so we can get it through the microphone. Frank and Evelyn Bird.
Skip and Marcia Hale.
Skip and Marcia Hale.
I'm 49, I can't hear either.
Well, what about your name there as well? Yeah, do that.
Jimmy Dawn and Delonia Green, my parents.
My sister Frances Wilhort. My beloved friend from Ocracoke, Virginia, Austin.
My son Soren.
Yep, my daddy, Jorge Suazo.
My brother Sly Gatewood and my sister Connie Ty.
My mother, Patsy Bogle, Jones Bogle, and my sister Allison Bogle. My grandfather, George Jones. Alice Dumas Jones is my grandmother. And, am I missing anybody?
I'd like my sister and my dad to raise a glass for my mom, Rennie Weiss. So legit.
My mother and my grandmother, both Alice.
My sister Judy Smart King.
My parents, Ken and Jane Atticott.
My friend Sally Hughes.
A friend of the five families, Dr. Ed Perry.
My mom, Betsy Harrison.
My parents, Lynn and Nancy McGill, and my friend Harvey Luck.
My husband, Leonard Meeker, and his dear childhood friend, Charles Runyon.
My aunt, Virginia Knox, and my uncle, Charles Blazer.
My beloved dad, Fred Beck.
Did we miss anyone?
Dear Ocracoke friends, Ann Miller, Cheryl Senseney, Eddie Johnson.
Our dear friend, Barbara Jemison.
Merle Davis is one of the people that brought us here.
Anyone else? And Bill Jordan.
Okay, and then let us together say, we remember them.
Reading by Sylvan Cummins and Rabbi Jack Reiner.
The title of this is We Remember Them. And we will read a line or lines about circumstances or seasons of life, and then we all will respond, we remember them. At the rising sun and at its going down, we remember them.
At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of the winter, we remember them.
At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them.
At the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them.
At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of the autumn, we remember them.
At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them.
As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them.
When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them.
When we have decisions that are too difficult to make, we remember them.
When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them.
When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them.
And for as long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
I believe Donald wants to say one last thing before we hear some songs from Martin.
There's one tiny story I tell you at Bill's request. Bill and I had a wonderful friend, Catherine Wyndham, who was from Alabama, a wonderful storyteller. And when Catherine was about 85 years old, we were at a festival in Huntsville. We were having our lunch break, and we were supposed to be in a place where nobody would bother us. But all of a sudden, a woman came in there and started talking to us. And all we wanted was a little lunch break. And Catherine kept acting more and more annoyed and more and more annoyed and more and more annoyed. Why didn't this woman leave us so we can have a break and have a break? And finally, the woman said, "You don't remember me. They say I look like my mother." She's going on and on. And finally, the woman said, "And I lost my husband in October." And Catherine looked at the woman and said, "Well, how careless of you." And the woman turned around and left. And then Catherine looked straight at me, and in all seriousness, she said, "Why would we ever say we lost someone we love? Don't you know what the word lost means? The word lost means we don't know where they are. The word lost means they don't know where they are. The word lost means they're not home and they don't know how to get home." She said, "I will never say that I lost someone I loved, because I know where they are, they know where they are, and they are home." And Tom, Bill says he's waiting for you.
I'm going to turn it back over to Mark, but I'll echo Jeff and David and Mom and say thank you. Radical love indeed.
especially liked. This first one is a tune that was written by a young lady by the name of Iris DeMille, A Changing Way of Life in Small Kindness. This is called Our Time. Can't you see the sun setting fast? Like they say, nothing good ever lasts. Go on now and say goodbye. Hold on to your love, because your heart's bound to die. Go on now and say goodbye to our time, our time. Can't you see the sun setting down on our time, on our time? Good night. Up the street by the red neon light is where I met my baby on a hot summer night. She was a tender and a harder to beer. 40 years later and we're still 17. Go on now and say goodbye to our town, to our town. Can't you see the sun setting down on our town, on our town? Sat on the porch and watched the lightning bugs fly. I can't see too good, I got tears in my eyes. I'm leaving tomorrow, but I don't want to go. I love you, my town, you'll always live in my soul. Go on now and say goodbye to our town, to our town. Can't you see the sun setting down on our town, on our town? Good night. Good night. Good night. And for the last song, this is a tune that was I think this would be Mr. Bill's advice to everybody in here today. And this was a tune that I came across that Guy Lombardo did back in the late 1940s. This is called Enjoy Yourself. You work and work for years and years, you're always on the go. You don't have time for any fun, too busy making dough. You say you stop and see the world when you're a millionaire, but how far can you travel in your old rocking chair? So enjoy yourself, it's later than you think. Enjoy yourself while you're still in the peak. The years go by as quickly as a wink. So enjoy yourself, it's later than you think. You say you stop and see the world, you really get around. But there are reservations, but you know you can't be found. You say you stop and see the world, you really get around. But how far can you travel when you're 6 feet underground? So enjoy yourself, it's later than you think. Enjoy yourself while you're still in the thick. The years go by as quickly as a wink. So enjoy yourself, it's later than you think. You worry when the weather's cold, you worry when it's hot. You worry when you're doing well, you worry when you're not. It's worry, worry all the time, you don't know how to laugh. You think of something funny when they write your epitaph. So enjoy yourself, it's later than you think. Enjoy yourself while you're still in the pink. The years go by as quickly as a wink. So enjoy yourself, it's later than you think. Enjoy yourself, it's later